All right, welcome everyone. It's a real honor to be here for Grand Rounds today and to have an amazing speaker like Dr. Zahi Fayad. So for those of you who don't know him, he's been pushing the field for a very long time now. So we're very happy to have him here. So Dr. Zahi Fayad is the Lucy Moses Professor of Medical Imaging and Bioengineering, the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai, where he also served as Vice Chair for Research in Radiology and Post-Professorship in Medicine, Cardiology and AI, and Human Health. He's the founding director of the Biomedical Engineer and Imaging Institute, home to one of the nation's top NIH-funded radiology programs, number 2 in 2024. And Dr. Fayad also co-leads the Mount Sinai system-wide Healthspan initiative, coordinating research, clinical, and digital infrastructure to advance precision prevention across the enterprise. Dr. Fayad is a principal investigator on multiple major grants, including 5 NIH-funded projects supported by the National Heart Plan and Blood Institute, NIAID, and NIDA. A leader in biomedical engineering, his interdisciplinary work integrates advanced imaging, AI, and nanomedicine to drive precision medicine, particularly in cardiovascular disease. He's a very varied, highly cited researcher with over 190,000 citations and an age index of 142. His seminal contributions include MRI vessel wall imaging leading to cataracts, FDG PET imaging of vascular inflammation, and defining the link between amygdala activity, systemic inflammation, and cardiovascular risk. Research on HDL-based nanoparticles for immune modulation, progressing toward clinical translation for cancer, autoimmune diseases, and transplant rejection. Dr. Fayad's current projects span cardiovascular, neuroimmune, and transplant-focused research, including stress-induced immune dysregulation, mitral prolapse and arrhythmia risk, cocaine use-related carotid atherosclerosis, and cognitive impairment, cardiac sarcoidosis therapy monitoring, and immune tracking in organ rejection using nanobiologics. He also leads the Mount Sinai DigiTwin project, an AI-driven platform designed to personalize health optimization by integrating imaging, real-time physiologic data, and advanced analytics. Dr. Fayad and colleagues at Mount Sinai are finalists in the X Prize Healthspan competition, where they are evaluating a multimodal strategy to meaningfully extend human lifespan. It's a real honor to have you here. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much. Really nice to be here. I always like to connect with people that I met throughout the years. One of them is Mario Garcia. We met really a long time ago and worked together, and always great to see him again, as well as new friends and other colleagues around this institution. So the topic that I'm going to cover, spans a little bit some of my most recent research and interest. But it really has been a thread in my lab to be able to try to better understand human health. And I will explain to you, why today, I chose to spend most of my energy pushing this project. This project goes, I think, and you will see, I hope that I'll try to convey to you and convince you that goes really, in a sense, beyond healthcare. And that's why I put in my title, I feel that if we are able to push the Healthspan agenda and initiative, we will be initiating a new era for humanity, because it has had an impact not only on healthcare, but actually on the whole aspect of us as human beings on this earth. One thing to convey, and this is maybe a little bit more for the general public, is that we hear a lot in the news about people dying. In this case, I chose cases of cancer, but it could have been people dying prematurely from cardiovascular disease or other type of diseases. So that's what we would like to be able to avoid. We don't want people, especially people who have contributed incredibly to humanity, like Steve Jobs, Chadwick Boseman, or Susan Wojcicki, who all died in their mid-50s or mid-40s. They had a lot of privilege and access, but somehow, they could not escape. They are not immune to the cost of the disease. So health is the greatest equalizer and most important asset we have. So preventing disease early is, I think, primordial. It's one of the most important things that all of us can do and contribute to. And I want to hit a little bit on the aspect of the economic burden and aging, not necessarily only, as I said, related to the healthcare, but also to the overall burden that it has on our society. We have now, I think, in the United States and other, we have 80% of adults who are aging more than 65 plus. And the issue is not, that they're getting, older. The issue is they're living with at least one chronic condition. And then there's an incredible burden of these. And most of the spending we do in healthcare, it's happening really at the end of life. And we're talking about $500 billion of annual cost to chronic conditions in the United States. So this imposes a massive financial and societal cost. And again, one of the best ways to solve this is to try to push prevention rather than dealing with it at the end or at the aspect of looking at it from a sick care point of view, but rather from a healthcare point of view. Let me emphasize also the aspect of what the goal is. We are not talking here about extending people's life to over 100, 120. Maybe we will. But I think one goal, which is still very ambitious, is can we push and compress the gap between the lifespan and the health span? Right now, we have people who have a gap between the two of anywhere between 10 to 15 years, which means that you're living your end of your life in a miserable way with at least, if you're 65 and older, 95% will have at least one chronic disease. 80% will have two chronic diseases, and over, third or so will have three chronic diseases. And you want to be able to have people live, fine, they live, up to their 90s or 80s, but we want to be able to reduce that gap between the two. And that's really one of the major goals of this Healthspan initiative. This is an interesting analysis that people have done. This is more of a thought process. And looking at, let's say tomorrow, one of you in the room, working in cardiovascular research, cured all cardiovascular diseases. You figure it out. You maybe have a vaccine, one shot, and there is no more. You'll be out of business, number one. You have to find something else to do. But really, what will do, you'll only be able to extend somebody's life by 4 or 5 years. Why? Because aging is not only one disease, it's a multiple of diseases. So you still have to deal with cancer. We still have to find a way to eradicate also neurological diseases. And you can do the same experiment looking at cancer and say, let's eradicate cancer. So the goal here is to be able to manage and slow down the biological aging. That's really what you're trying to do, and avoid all these chronic diseases as a whole. And that is what is going to help us to extend the health span in general. And biology aging has biology. We currently today understand the effect of some of the genomic instability. We understand some of the epigenetic alteration, myocardial dysfunction, cellular senescence, chronic inflammation. All these have mechanistic biological basis that are, in a way, are the one responsible for our aging. And you also, again, and you have come back to this thing that you cannot be thinking about aging just from one disease point of view. You practicing today, one aspect of this. But in the future, I think we will be practicing medicine. We'll be thinking about all of these at the same time. Or you will be looking at addressing, then you have cardio-oncology, for example. That's a great example of two disciplines coming together to solve the problem. In the future, we'll have people looking at it from a holistic point of view, cardiovascular disease, cancer, diabetes, and Alzheimer's. And that's the only way that you're going to be able to look at it because you're looking at multiple conditions at once and you're trying to prevent them simultaneously. That's a big challenge. That's really, I think, is one of the aspects of the challenge that we have. But again, we know that there are ways to handle, and I will be talking to you about how, what are the steps that we could start taking to lead to that. I'm an engineer by training. As an engineer, we always think about measuring something accurately and then figure out how accurate it is. We always compare it to a gold standard. And all industries have a gold standard and variables that they can. We in medicine, we do not have that. We do extremely well treating chronic diseases. We understand what sick is. We do miracles. You do miracles every day. But we do not understand in general what is health means. And that, I think, is the problem that we have. This is something that, we need to be going into this to shift our thinking and our work. Going from maintaining health must be shifting to proactive health optimization. So that's why the measurement of what health is going to be one of the most important goals that we have in the next couple of years, so we can address the aspect of prevention and aging in general. We are at this inflection point today, and I will explain why right now. We have done it very well as a first wave in medicine, and we can extend that and bundle it together from 1900 up to the year 2000, where we've eradicated some of the diseases with vaccines. We have antibiotics. We dealt with infection extremely well. We increased survival. People used to die in their 30s. So we've done really well. And now we're getting into this movement, I hope, that we want to get into extension of life and extending the quality. And the reason why I'm talking to you about it today, because we are beginning to have these tools in our hand. We have biomarkers for the aging aspect. We have genetic, we have digital health. And then finally, we have all the tools in terms of analyzing the data with the AI methodology. And so we are hopefully going into this S curve and jumping that S curve and going to that second wave where the emphasis is going to be on the healthy aging, as we know it. Other aspect that I think are important, a lot of time we talk about, how we're going to pay for this and what are the methodologies for return on investment and all this. Of course, it's challenging, especially in the United States. We do not have a single healthcare system that's basically nationalized or one entity that's taking care of us and ensuring us throughout the lifespan. Most people here, stick in their employment about 5 years or so, and they change, and therefore their healthcare insurance changes. So you're talking about a very narrow window when you think about people doing insurance and claims. You're looking at your risk over only a 5-year period of time, rather than across your lifespan, which would be much better. That's a problem we have. But there are other ways that we could begin to motivate why. There have been actually quite examples of companies like John Hancock and Cigna Health, where they created health-based active health programs and incentives for people to participate in, and where they are adopting measures like lifestyle aspect related, where they are maintaining better health outcomes, in terms of maintaining their blood pressure, their blood sugar, their cholesterol, their weight, etc. And they give you discounts or incentives because you were able to reach these ones. These are not very wide at the national level, but that's why I wanted to put them here, because these programs, have been initiated. At Mount Sinai, we insure our own employees, and then we have started to create some of these incentives to try to get people to go into these active health program. We started with giving discount if you do your yearly physical. That's a positive thing. The second one, we've introduced people reporting back to us how many steps they take in the day, and we give them certain type of reward if they meet certain criteria. Then we've also initiated weight management with an app for people to maintain a healthy weight or target. Then more and more in 2026, we're going to try to create now more, introduce more of the digital aspect into it with wearables and other apps, means, and coaching to be able. But again, don't think that we're doing this in a very wide manner yet. I mean, they are still small programs, but at least we are being very proactive into this area and looking at this return on investment. The other aspect that's very interesting also that now the consumers are really being very demanding of some of these things. Maybe they are getting misinformation from some of the available tools that they have access to, but at least they are, in a sense, asking about wellness and wellness. The young, age group that have a lot of disposable income because they don't have all these other financial burdens that they have, family, house, etc. They used to spend a lot of their disposable income on leisure aspects, entertainment, makeup, whatever, travel. Now they're starting to shift, some of these dollars, trying to say, I want to be, going to a spa. Maybe I want to do some kind of a meditation, because it's important to my wellness. I am now, doing, spending more money at the gym, to be able to adopt some of these lifestyle behavior. These are consumers that were not coming into the healthcare system. And they are predicting that, this kind of expenditure, a lot of it, out of pocket in a way, could reach, and is reaching all the way up to $500 billion. So that's a very important, I would say, thing that we need to be listening to try to cater to, but also there is an economic incentive to it. It has to be a reward eventually. Somebody has to pay for all this. One that I think is going to be critical is as longevity moves from fringe science is to mainstream economic and policy relevance. I mean, I really think this is where you're going to have the biggest impact in pushing prevention out there. It has to be part of a policy from an economical point of view, where you can demonstrate that it is not only good for individual, but it really has an incredible economical value globally. And that's why you will be hitting that era of humanity improvement. We're talking $12 trillion in global GDP that's predicted in the Healthspan. 5 to 10% GDP growth just from a 1 year of Healthspan gain. I think our whole society, will change. And we're talking people will be still active in the workforce at a later age, participating not reluctantly, but they want to be part of that aspect. You're talking about less spending maybe on healthcare, more spending on other things that you can because now you're still working, not maybe cashing in your Social Security. There are incredible ways that I think will change if we're able to achieve this. And I think one of the best ways to get this into is to try to convince the policymakers about the investment into this area. All right. So, but really, I think, sorry, I have a mismatch between the Mac and the PC on my slide. So, the problem is that it's a little bit the Wild West right now, and actually a little bit toxic environment today. Wellness and longevity, they're sold as expensive, high-touch services, and very little, evidence-based prevention that should, we should be able to deliver through low-cost public and digital models at scale. This is just an example of some of the company. I'm not being critical, but just to show you that it is very expensive today. Some of it is there's no validation. Some of it is just some labs, which anybody can go to Quest and LabCorp and get them, and somehow they're marketed and bundled in a way that's attractive. And so, oh yeah, I'm going to do this. Some of it is really put into an environment that looks really, Star Wars or very upscale, but it's just a stethoscope and an SpO2 device, but somehow bundled and marketed in a way. I hope that we will move out of this. I mean, some of the things that are being done are good, but some of the stuff is being done is totally garbage and it doesn't make any sense. But we, as physicians and scientists, we have to be the louder than that, than the social media and the people trying to sell you supplement online. I'm writing a paper on this, talking about TikTok doctors and what is our role in the future, trying to combat this. But the critical thing for us is to think about how we can move from this reactive sick care, where we wait for symptoms to appear and treat disease, to the aspect of wellness. But I wanted to put the word scientific wellness. I mean, it's really, we have to be bringing this field up to the standard that we're used to, especially in the field of cardiology. So we've done extremely well in our randomized clinical trials and evidence-based guidelines. And one of the ways to move this, I mean, I think what's going to simplify and help this prevention move today, and that's why this message is as important today as ever, is because the tool and the continuous monitoring is going to be available to us to be able to prevent disease before it strikes. And I wanted to re-emphasize that this is not what we're looking for. I mean, this is very loud, people, talking about, almost like a cult, don't die cult. But behind it is all the whole supplements selling all kind of, testing, etc. I mean, one of them is Brian Johnson. I mean, he's a guy that, there's so many other ones too, by the way. But this guy is easily picked on because he's crazy. I mean, he's doing all kind of. He injected himself with some cells in his face and got this immune reaction. I mean, he's fine now. He takes the blood from his son, recirculates it in himself. But all this is fine to be experimenting and biohacking, etc. But again, there is a commercial thing behind it, and most of the stuff that he's talking about doesn't make any sense. He even fakes his numbers, and I don't think he tells you, "Oh, I have my VO2 max X." He never shows you actually his how he got to his VO2. I mean, some people film themselves like in an hour on a treadmill or a bike or 20 minutes and show you, what they're doing. This guy is just making up these numbers as he speaks. So that's what we want to avoid. And again, we are the voice of. Okay. All right. So one thing we also, as I continue my thread here, is the science of aging has been again also hijacked by others. Maybe not necessarily on what they're doing, but the goals that they're trying to set. We are not looking at reversing aging or having people live forever. Maybe that should be generation 3, 4 of this, and we're not going to be there. I mean, I think right now, our major goal is let's try to prevent these age-related diseases, cardiovascular disease, cancer, and neurodegenerative. And the moment is there. The moment is there because of all these tools that we have in our hand. We understand now better and better the biology. We have tools, for testing, from the genomic, from proteomics, and other omic aspect. We have imaging, we have trackers, we have, very rich medical record, big data sets, and AI. So I really think that's why the moment to do this is there. I like to put this slide because this is what got me into into trouble, into this field in a way. I mean, years ago, we put in together a program project to NHLBI, and I've been very interested in because I like exercise and lifestyle behavior. I've been very interested to try to bring my own personal experience into my own research. I tried to do on the boldness, but it's not. So maybe hopefully other people will help me in that. But so we put together what are these life thresholds, determinant, of biology, And then so it's, so we looked at, there's sleep, there's exercise, there is diet, there's the exposome, pollution, light, there's pathogen. And then, we started to pitch this to the institute at the NIH. And obviously NHLBI was the one where we went first because this is where most of our research has been. And then they really liked the aspect of the stress. They said, look, chronic stress with cardiovascular disease, heart failure data is very strong. Aspect of people getting into myocardial infarction and stroke. It's very strong. People like Matthias Nerendorf and Phil Swartzy at NGH, you were there, had a great data on the mouse models and showing how the immune system gets modulated and altered. And I've been a collaborator with Matthias and Phil. Phil now is at Mount Sinai, but before that we were collaborating from MGH. And then with Ahmed Tawakkol, who also you worked with. So we said, look, we get always inspired by your biological methodology and animal models. And then we said, look, we can translate that into humans. So we put together this program to study chronic stress exposure. But at the same time, I've been saying, I've continued to work within our human work and animal work. We are also studying the other life stressors within the context of this. But I also said to myself, it's really about time to do a prospective study trying to understand better lifestyle behavior, and I will lead you to that. Another question that we always ask is the aspect of genetics. I've been dealt these genes, my parents have it, what can I do about it? That's my fate, etc. And I think genetics, sorry for people in this field, but has been a little bit overhyped in terms of what is its impact and what is, it obviously shows you susceptibility to disease. It doesn't mean that you have it. And lifestyle factors trump genetics. So in a sense, you could negate and improve your profile regardless of your genetic profile. So if you look at it from all aspects, even if you have a low risk, average genetic risk, or a high genetic risk, your lifestyle factors such as smoking, alcohol, physical activity, BMI or body shape, sleep duration, and diet will always be protected, regardless of your genetic background. And actually, with the American Heart Association, they've really done extremely well, trying to even build on that and created the AHA Life's Essential 8, where the focus is on nutrition, physical activity, non-smoking, healthy weight, blood pressure, cholesterol, glucose, and then finally they added sleep, and hopefully they'll be adding stress, which would be Life Essential 9. But at least the Life Essential 8, many studies continue to demonstrate. This is actually in 700,000 US veterans where they adopted or optimized these 8 healthy lifestyle factors, shown in a significant reduction in mortality risk and increase in life expectancy. It's a very powerful thing to be able to monitor, to optimize. And then one area which is more difficult and has been an incredible disappointment in the drug development is the aspect of cognitive decline and Alzheimer's, and most of the drugs so far have failed. However, if you are aggressive and taking the same thing as we've done in cardiovascular disease with your lifestyle intervention, so again, diet, exercise, in this case, mental aspect related to meditation, good sleep hygiene, and some supplement. I was not too big on the supplement aspect in the study. I didn't understand, what it would be, the effect of that versus the others. But at least, with this, Dean Ornish, very well known, maybe from some of you, cardiologist prevention, one of the fathers of the prevention program, and showing all the markers related to neurovascular disease. In this case, cognition improvement with the biomarker improvement related to Alzheimer's, and then some health aspect, with the microbiome. So this is a very difficult problem, but again, if you are optimizing your lifestyle intervention, you will be able to improve your cognitive decline. A couple of other tidbits, to touch on, I think are important. Is the aspect of diet. I still think we have a lot more to learn about diet. I think now with a lot of it is population studies and maybe self-reported. They're difficult to do these studies. They're not always, right. But again, I think if you look at your plate and you have all the different colors, that's a healthy diet. To get into these other specialized diets, I mean, you would never be able to maintain them. And there's a whole debate between, vegetarian, less meat, etc. I'm not sure about that. But again, this is the Mediterranean diet, which does not have, maybe not much, processed meat, but mainly, whole grains, low-fat dairy, a lot of greens, shown to be superior. And this, so we know we have still a lot to learn here, I would say, on the diet, but we know we need to optimize it. And then the other aspect that we don't usually talk about is the aspect of loneliness and connection. I mean, I bundle that under mental health, but this has been shown to be very important. It supports mental health by lowering stress. If you, I mean, some other different countries, have closer connection to family, live closer. There's a lot of support. In some of the Western society, we lack that. Also seen that aspect that evolved, over COVID. How this loneliness and isolation. There have been a lot of interest at the major, World Health Organization. How do we improve this loneliness and create social connection? But again, that's a major factor. It's a risk factor in terms of health. And then the one that I like the most is exercise. I really think that's a miracle drug. We continue to unveil, the power of exercise, not necessarily only from only a cardiorespiratory function, which I think is also very critical, and it's something that you need to watch for as you get older, because your VO2 max will decrease very, very quickly every decade. But there's an incredible aspect related to the anti-inflammatory effect of exercise and the effect on the brain and the rest of the body. And just to cite a few things, I mean, exercise does not have to be always this vigorous. I still think you need to exercise all your energy systems, but even low intensity, walking, strolling, is better than nothing, and it's a positive thing. But that's again where we're going to start in the future, start to be more specific and more personalized. This is a quote that I like from John Ashley, who's the chair of medicine, I believe, at Stanford. He's a cardiologist and a great one of the great exercise researchers. One quote he had, he said, 1 minute of exercise brings you 5 minutes of extra life. And actually, it's a little more. If you did high intensity exercise, 1 minute would give you 7 or 8 of extra. Maybe something you can talk to your patient. I think you told me you put in your notes some of these guidelines. I think it's a good one to quote and to motivate somebody. And then one of these things, I mean, we see a lot of old people who are, continue to perform, at some event. This is a 93-year-old, well-known guy who's a big rower. And just to show you that the human body maintains the ability to adapt to exercise at any age, showing that it's never too late, to start a fitness program. So I highly encourage people. Now moving to how we are going to get people to adopt all these lifestyles. I think being able to measure, to see your measurement, to have a coach or an AI coach or a real physical coach, etc., and be aided. It's going to happen with technology. This was done, in a review article talking more specifically about the Asian population and how they are going to be benefiting in their homes from adopting and have their home being equipped with all these digital tools. There are even, some places where they are imagining, building homes and places where all this technology is fully integrated. I visited the University of Miami School of Architecture not a long time ago, when there is a whole prototype of apartments tailored for this digital sensing and connection that it meant, obviously for older people, but it hopefully would be part of what we will do on a regular basis where your refrigerator, as you open it with the handle, you can get some biometric measurement, physiological measurement. You'll be able to know, what you ate from the stuff that you took from your refrigerator. Tells you, if your variety you have in your fridge is going to be on the healthy end or not. A lot of things that technology will be able to help without being, too intrusive. It's going to be this passive aspect that we will, same thing as we've accepted the driving cars and elevators, we will be accepting this to be part of our life in the future. I'm guilty as charged. I mean, I adopted these tools a long time ago. I'm wearing 1, 2, 3, 4. I had this on me for a couple of weeks. This is almost like a stethoscope. It has a microphone in there. All these sensing devices. We build this ourselves. Put it on your chest, and you can hear your heart rate. You can heartbeat. You can hear your lung sounds, and then get all other measurement related to your steps, your sleep, etc. One of the best thing that it did to me is sleep hygiene. I used to be a terrible sleeper, like probably most of you in this room. We're all, I think, get trained you're given the wrong guidance about sleep. It's even a macho thing. At one time it was when I was in school. And I actually started to train myself. The goal was for me to sleep as little as possible so I can be at the lab and do research. But it's not something sustainable. And people have written and talked about how bad it is. But it's not only you start measuring. I mean, you obviously feel it bad in the morning. You don't need something to tell you. But honestly, the measurement is much more an open eye opener, because you will start correlating that score that you get with other activities that you have done the night before or the day before. I started to force myself to sleep. Now, I'm not always in the green. Maybe when I'm on vacation, I am, and maybe some of the weekends. But in general, I'm in the yellow or trending to be better. I still have more work to do, but I feel great. I've also started to drink less alcohol, although I'm from France and I love wine. But I started to change my habit because I noticed it increases my heart rate variability. So these are all things that we can all be motivated on. They're not difficult to adopt. Everybody can buy these devices cheaply now, and hopefully get into the journey of improvement on health. One of the devices that I think is showing us that beyond heart rate variability, temperature, SpO2, they're all based on this PPG type of technology that's there with the sensing, is really the glucose monitor. I mean, you're really now detecting, a certain analyte specifically through interstitial fluid here. This is now, in endocrinology, and looking at diabetes is the way to go. I mean, most of our patients who are diabetic and need a glucose monitor are using this continuous glucose monitoring. They also have been adopted and looked at for other means other than diabetes, trying to see and understand better the response you have and the spikes you will have and how long you'll have them, according to some of your lifestyle behavior, what you ate, some of the reaction to the and maybe some of the exercise you're doing, and also what you do post meal. There have been great studies that showed that you could actually, if you post meal, if you go in for a walk, you will reduce your glucose response and lower your spike to that. That's healthy. So these are simple things being adopted, and they are being simplified. I have to tell you today, the use for commercially for people like us, not necessarily if you have diabetic, but it's still hard to look at your CGM data and understand what it does and how. It's starting to get simplified. This week, there is the Consumer Electronic Show in Las Vegas every year in January, and a lot of the companies introduce new products. Some of it may not make it, some of it will make it. And one of the company, I believe Abbott, introduced for their Libre device available to consumers. They now have an app that will see your glucose spikes and how you've been taking pictures of your food, and we'll start giving you a recommendation. Right? As you take a picture of that plate, we'll tell you, hey, that potato you have in there, has a yellow on it. It's going to spike you a little bit. That maybe that salmon you have looks good for you. It will start helping you on the diet aspect, which I think is very important for the general consumer. And finally, the sensing, and I'm very excited about this, is that we are getting to the molecular level now. They're still not at scale. I mean, we've been working with prototype where we can measure cytokines or inflammatory markers, CRP, interleukin, continuously from sweat markers, from sweat band that we have on our wrist, using some microfluidics and other protein sensing. Most of the proteins we're interested in healthcare, their concentration is at the level that most of this technology can get. So we're not talking, in many iteration of these sensors. I think, 26, 27, we will start seeing a lot of the molecular type of sensing happening. That's why at Sinai, I convinced the institution to put together a lab where we can build our own electronics. We can laser cut, assemble, and this is the kind of electronic that we're talking about. This is soft, next generation electronics, not hard like the one you have on your watch. And you could, modify these, and iterate and add all these different components very easily to them. So we do a lot of this. We cannot do this at large scale yet, but we can deployment in research study and tailor them to what we're trying to measure. Oh, and even for the imagers here, there will be, and have been now prototype of ultrasound probes on exactly this kind of with this technology. So these are ultrasound sensors where you can see you can place them all over the body. Some of you who do echo can recognize, the measurement that's being done, as a patch to put on your heart, and it's wild. This would be really, changing that you're not only measuring physiology, but you also can do imaging remotely on people, and you can also put them and have them, for a lot of applications. So I'm really excited about how this technology would be used. Okay, so I'll finish very quickly now with the meat of the talk. Is after I motivated you why we want to do this, is that we want to be able to now look at your health and monitor your health trajectory throughout your life, 367 days throughout the year. It boggles me again. I'm an engineer, and I know I trained when I was looking at a circuit board as an electrical engineer. I was measuring things to understand what is the health of the circuit board. Is it working? Why it's not working? I had test points. So I would measure things. I had sensors. Today in industry, we do this all the time. We have machines, turbines in a factory with multitude of sensors. We're monitoring the status of that turbine and modifying things and changing things in real time to fix it. Airplanes have 25,000 sensors on them that are continuously monitoring the status of the plane. So you have cockpit control, you have what's going on in the engine, what's going on at the wings, what's going on at the cabins, flight control, being beamed to Earth, to the ground, and looking at what's going on and modifying things. This not only reduces the cost of maintaining the plane, which is very expensive also, but listen to this. It's also helping maintain the life. Why don't we do that in people? I think because in the past we didn't have the way to monitor it. Now suddenly we do have that. We have all these things that I mentioned to you. We could do things episodically, but you could also do things continuously. You can add them all together and really create that real-time sensing and modeling. And this twin itself will become basically every patient you will have a twin of them. So it will be a computer version in silico. Epic, maybe Epic hopefully won't exist, but there will be something better than Epic. But the Epic will be that digital twin. We'll have all the labs, all the medical record, and you'll be able to say before the patient, say, well, maybe I will change the medicine. Let me do a simulation to see if I add this medicine, this blood pressure, what will it do to you before you actually give it to the patient? At what dose? So there will be a lot of things that will be helpful when we move to that digital world. So we initiated the study, and the study, its first purpose is to try to deploy these multiple technologies, these multiple pipelines of analysis and integration to see how feasible it is. This is a very ambitious project. It is an overkill. I'm collecting millions of data points. I do not need a million. So if I need a million, I'll quit this. It will not be scalable. But it is now helping us define what are the tools that we need to build the digital twin of a human being of the future. So let me walk you through this. This requires a yearly visit that will take 4 hours in the lab, where you do a battery of testing. The conventional, health history. We actually have an app. It speeds up the process where you can onboard somebody, consent them this way, collect all these subject reported outcomes, connect you to your EHR. But now let me come to do a vital measurement. We take some blood. Then we do a couple of these physical fitness tests, which I think are very important for longevity. 12-minute Cooper treadmill walk. It's an estimate of VO2. I don't think people in general public likes to undergo a true VO2 max measure. I did it and I love it. And I don't think people want that. But that's an estimate of VO2 max. And maybe in the future, there'll be other tools. We're looking at actually other devices that could be a good surrogate marker of VO2 max, but at least that one is well accepted in human performance. The other ones is related to strength, which I think is very critical in longevity, to see how strong somebody is. The grip strength is easy to do, but it's a lot of variability in my opinion. We use it anyway, but I think more importantly is this device, which is your leg power and strength. This has been validated in the Baltimore aging study. It's a very well-known aging study that's done over many decades, looking at people as they age, etc. So the strength and the power of your legs is critical. If you can imagine for frailty, etc. And that's something that you need to monitor and measure. And I think it's a great indicator. I'll talk about the imaging in a second. We do blood collection, which I'll also explain to you how we collect that at home without being a puncture and bringing somebody to your house in a very modern way. But we do genetic whole genome sequencing from the saliva, and then also gut and oral microbiome. Some of these are still not sure. I mean, it's still exploratory, but we wanted to throw everything at it. And then finally, we equip you and train you how to use these multiple devices, and you go take them home. And we have a frequency of measurement according to the device that we use. We ended up selecting the Oura Ring. We could have gone with other devices, but when we did some market research, the Oura Ring adoption of Ring ended up being ranked the highest in a way. I actually do not use a lot of my Oura Ring because I do weightlifting and I don't like to have a ring on my finger when I'm doing this, so I don't have continuous data there. But in general, this is well accepted in a way. We actually just published in a paper reviewing all the different sensors available on the market to explain, what's the plus and negative about. And the other things that we feel are important markers would be a weight scale. So this is, regular weight scale. People use it a lot in heart failure and remote patient monitoring. Blood pressure measure, same thing. You can easily do at home. And then things related to your lung capacity, respiratory with this spirometer. Our pulmonary department actually deploys that now in all patients to get their lung capacity measure. And then the glucose monitor, where you wear 2 weeks every quarter. We add other things such as an indoor air monitor. It looks like this mouse here. It's not the most sophisticated yet, but it does capture some 2.5 ppm exposure in the air. And then finally, this is a silicon band. It costs 20 cents, but it's chemically treated. So I can look at chemical exposure and analyze this every 2 weeks with mass spec. This is done in the lab, but and it gives us what you've been exposed in terms of chemicals that could be bad for you. And we have a whole list of them. And then finally, I spent a lot of time trying to validate these lab tests so we can really create a good pipeline that can be done easily at home. So we looked at two things. We looked at this device. This is a Lancet. It has 4 different channels where it's dry blood spot cartridge. And we extract 75 microliter from each shoulder. And this is really is our pipeline for all the omics measurement that we're making. The epigenetic measurement, proteomics, metabolomics, lipidomics. So that helps us do that. And then finally, because I want to do frequent blood measurements, I feel that these blood measurements on a quarterly basis are critical to see changes over time. Remember, we're looking for small changes over the period of the year. So we decided to use this, finger prick device on a dry blood collection, and I've compared this a lot to conventional blood panels and it matches really well. And part of the study also is to do validation of this. So that's why I'm taking blood on a yearly basis and comparing one of the time points against each other. And finally, this looks like this. So you have this onboarding, vital signs, sample collection. We give you an apple to eat, relax, train you on the study, on the app, and on the devices. An hour and a half MRI, and I'll explain to you what it's all about. 12-lead ECG, cognitive test. Their battery of tests very well validated to executive function, memory, motor function, with an iPad. It's more this. And then finally, we do at the end the grip strength, and we do the 12 minutes Cooper test, and then the lab. That's a 4-hour visit with us, and it's been consistent. I've been getting people in there learning as we move forward. Now, finally, on the MRI, MRI is not what you hear maybe advertised by Kim Kardashian or in Vogue magazine. Now, people talk about MRI. You go to a party in some of the social clubs here or in LA. Did you get your whole body MRI? Oh, I got mine. The MRI now suddenly is like a big fashion. This is all for screening. Prenuvo, Ezra, Simon Mack, etc. This is not what we're advocating. We're really doing quantitative organ functional measurement. Brain assessment. So we can do whole brain segmentation, very critical for aging. People have shown hippocampus change with age and decrease. So this is an incredible marker, well validated. We do whole body composition. Because I have an MRI there. I'm not going to send them to a DEXA. So we do a whole body. So we can understand your fat measurement, your muscle measurement. We do cardiac function with MRI, cardiac output. We measure within the chest with pericardial fat, lung function, liver, and iron content, and liver fat, pancreas, and then the whole. So this is not all. We've added. Go all the way up to an hour now with this quantitative measure. And then we have all these reports and we compare whatever is available, let's say in the UK Biobank and other big, large data sets, what is normal in the general population. And we just cite that in our reports. And then finally, I have a very good friend, maybe some of you may know him, he's a cardiologist, Mike McConnell, prevention cardiologist at Stanford, but also worked at Apple Health with the Apple arrhythmia detection, and still in the prevention. But he's showed me this device at the AHA with retinal imaging, and this is really an optical coherence tomography retinal imaging device that is facing to the consumer. So you don't need to dilate. It's not meant for retinopathy, to get. But at least with AI now, they're able to do all kind of diagnosis, at least in principle. There have been many papers, and I like to cite this paper, this September, showing that you could detect subclinical atherosclerosis using retinal imaging analysis compared to, what we see on CT. I think this is extremely powerful. I like it for many reasons. Number one, the technology that they use in OCT in a very incredible optics and device. There's so much data you can analyze. There have been so many AI tools. Probably one of the best AI tools applied in medical imaging has been in the retinal imaging aspect. And then there's a window to cardiovascular disease, hypertension, neurological disease, etc. And it's so easy to do. It takes 30 seconds. I mean, my goal in this, that's why I call it the platform technology. I'm trying to see technology that can be easily adopted and scaled eventually. Okay, and I'll finish with the AI coach. I mean, how much time do I have? 5 minutes. Okay, we're gonna need 4 questions, right? Yeah.
Yeah, probably 3.
Yep. Yeah, so I'll make it. So now, what are we gonna do with all this data? And really, until 4 years ago, if you ask me, and 4 years ago, why? It's the anniversary, of LLMs. I mean, I will tell you, it's a difficult problem. I have data coming in at different frequencies. I have time series. I have different scale. But now is, multimodal LLM models, and it's been shown, better for, AI forecasting. In forecasting today, I mean, they stopped using, the physical equation. And they're really now using AI to do better prediction. And that's really is the idea with this. Google actually has a paper in the archive, it hasn't published, reviewed yet, but at least in the archive, where they show, some of these personal health agents. So this is all AI agentic, models using personal health data. In this case, they shown using some of the wearables and created, these AI coaches where now it's not ChatGPT. This is really trained on data, medical data, and sensor data rather than on just the web itself. So now you can ask a question. It looks like your sleep duration was okay, but your deep sleep was low. I recommend that you do X according to the guideline that we have out there. So there is this data science agent, this is domain expert agent, and then finally your health agent. So we actually started to build this, before even we saw the paper coming in from Google, but at least, it reinforced, pardon the pun, because we use reinforcement learning, it reinforced to us that the ideas of creating these digital agentic AI agent for health is the right way to go. We're still not there. We're still building the model as we acquire the data. But our goal is to give you these recommendations related to lifestyles. And eventually, if this gets mature, we will push this into the aspect of how to optimize medical treatment with medicine, intervention, etc. So let me finish with this. And wanted to thank you, for help. Do I do anything?
Thank you very much. That was a wonderful talk, very promising and exciting for all of us. So please put your questions in the Q&A and have time for a couple of questions.
Yeah. Hi. So you mentioned a lot of these wearable and other devices, they're fraught with a lot of advertising and not much clinical proof. Classically, many of these are not regulated by the FDA, or they're regulated as like class 2, where they only have to be somewhat equivalent to current diagnostic things. But we really need evidence that these prolong life. Even our most rigorous things like mammograms and colonoscopies have equivocal evidence. So how do we put forward higher levels of regulation so it puts the onus on the maker of any of these devices to show mortality benefit?
Remember, So remember that most of the devices we have currently on the table, at least they're all consumer.
Yes.
Some of them have been adopted, but they're still label-wise. They are wellness things. So I think once the industry starting to see the return on investment, in that there is, if I build a device and I undergo regulatory approval, which is costly and takes time, etc., that there is a financial incentive for me to do this. I think we will start to. I mean, I consult for a couple of companies who are working on healthcare grade technology management for this. So they are slower to go to market because the road for regulation is slower. But meanwhile, we are seeing adoption of these consumer devices, and we should not neglect that. I mean, we should obviously they are not diagnostic, but they can be deployed in research study and where data can be. So we will start to learn from the research and the data that we collect how useful they are for X, Y, and Z. While waiting, I hope of all the many other manufacturers coming in and focusing on the health aspect and regulatory improvements.
Yeah, great talk. I'm a big believer in the whole biofeedback thing. That I just got the Garmin watch for the first time at my advanced age, and I loved it running. But I think at the end, the average person, which is the 90% of all persons, will not be able to self-regulate their behavior, even with biofeedback. So in the end, I think this will translate naturally into pharmacotherapy. So what's your take on that? And return on the investment is really for pharmaceutical industry. And for the consumer, the only way this is going to work is this remains a consumer product. And I don't need any of you to get my statin or my GLP-1 in the pharmacy. Then might translate into real population benefit. But what's your take on that?
I think we have to tackle both. We have to tackle the lifestyle behavior because the data is strong. And it is maybe one of the easiest way we're able to get into the human behavior. There are a lot of strategies that can be taken, and we've seen them in social media. In social media rewired our brain and made us a slave to this device that we carry with us. But for the wrong things. I mean, to sell us advertising and maybe make us angry I think we should try to leverage technology in a way to try to do this. And yesterday we were talking about nudging, and Duolingo is one of the most famous app for learning new language and showing how they're able to use some of that aspect. So that's one. But it's not only that. I mean, we have to go beyond lifestyle behavior. I did not get a chance to talk about the X Prize. The X Prize is this $80 million challenge. And we've taken an approach for the X Prize that is pharmacological. It has some human behavior. It has exercise, which I like to have, but it also has some rapamycin, which is controversial. It's shown really well in the mouse, but we wanted to get to the bottom of it. I really want to get to the bottom of rapamycin. And we have some other aspect. We have spermidine, which is a natural supplement, has been shown to have a positive aspect of inflammatory macrophages. And then an antiviral, which is approved for HIV-1 and hepatitis. So our focus is immune health, while at the same time touching on muscle function and touching on cognitive aspect. That's the age. So I'm looking at the both. At the first step, it's much easier for me to do lifestyle behavior while also understanding the challenge I'm going to have on human adoption.
Last question, Aldo.
Well, this is a great talk. I'm big into like some of this monitoring and trying to optimize life and habits and everything. In your experience, have you seen a lot of nocebo, effects from these devices? I mean, I myself as a type A, sometimes I try to do the best I can, eat healthy, exercise, push sleep, and then the next day you see your readiness is like 40, and you're like, that can really impact your day, right? So sometimes it's hard to really, a number cannot try to define your day. And if you one time it's fine, but then if you get it like 5 days in a row, you feel a little bit of loss in terms of like, okay, what should I do now, right? So what's wrong? If I'm in the medical field, that I cannot have the information, I cannot imagine what could happen to someone who doesn't have the data or doesn't have the knowledge. Have you seen that? What is your recommendation, your advice?
The key, as you said, is the knowledge. Is getting the education. I mean, I talk about it all the time, and then I try to give advice on exercise to everybody who asks me. And but I also have a conversation with them. What they're trying to achieve, and again, tell them, hey, look, some days are going to be great, some days are going to be bad. you're not an athlete, trying to get to that 1% and you're competing in a tournament. But anything you do is good. So there's a little bit of that education aspect. And eventually I do think there will be a bot, AI coach that would be trustworthy and be the one telling you, hey, don't feel bad today. You're going to be okay. And give you that aspect. We are getting there. Should I take that last
We have
question?
one last question here from Dr. Garcia, sorry.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So Dr. Garcia says, great example of how to establish a multidisciplinary collaboration. Question, how do you separate the direct versus the indirect effect of modifying one risk factor? As an example, you exercise, but at the same time that improves your glucose and lipid levels. Is this a direct or indirect effect that matters? And the second one, how do you measure stress?
So let me talk about stress first. We in our chronic stress exposure, we are looking at stress in two different ways. One is a regular instrument related to psychology or PSS, perceived stress score. There are several instruments you can use that will validate it, but these are subjective. The one that we've put together and we pioneered with Ahmed Tawakkol and our colleague is to do with via imaging. So we image the brain, we inject fluorodeoxyglucose and look at the aspect of the uptake within the amygdala. And we've demonstrated how the amygdala gets modulated according to this perceived stress, but at the same time also modulated by the inflammation. This has been one of, then we also, there are other networks within the brain that's established in terms of connection. So that's on this side. The other question, Mario, is very complicated. I mean, I think right now, I still believe that you need the combination of these multiple risk factor optimization, if I understood the question properly. I do think exercise in general will have a very positive effect on everything, as I said, from the immune aspect, from the metabolism aspect, from the physiology aspect, but also like everything else in life, everything at the extreme, if you push yourself and you don't recover, you're going to get into trouble. I mean, athletes, I draw a lot of my knowledge and inspiration from human performance and athletes. They do actually spend as much effort on recovery as they spend effort on the aspect of training their game, etc. So if I understood your question, I hope I answered it the right way. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, well, thank you very much, everyone, and thank you for coming. It was a great lecture, and hopefully we'll have you soon in a few years to show us all the results.